I am speechless when I try to describe what is going on here, because it is really literally unbelievable. Chris, we're talking about, in terms of healthcare, 1/6 of the American economy, trillions of dollars. You're talking about an issue that impacts virtually every single American in our country. And in the midst of all of this, you have a process by which right now, perhaps a dozen Republicans are the only people in America who know what is being talked about, what the new bill might look like. Most Republicans don't even know it, let alone anybody in the Democratic Caucus. This is outrageous beyond outrageous. This is unprecedented, I think, in the history of modern America, that you have a bill of such consequence where there is not one hearing. I'm a member of the Health and Education Committee. No hearings, no public debate. What will likely happen is that at the very last moment, on the day of the vote, Mitch McConnell will present a bill. The Republicans will, like sheep, vote for this legislation. And that's what the debate on one of the most important issues facing America will be like. It is incomprehensible.
You know, the closest analog in some ways that I can remember for something like this in a little bit is the Iraq War vote. And here's why I say this. That vote, there was tremendous political pressure at the moment to vote to authorize the use of force. It turned out that in the end, the policy itself mattered a great deal. It was paramount in the end to the political fortunes of the Republican Party, particularly whether the war was a good idea or not. And I just wonder whether your colleagues on the other side, if they don't know what the policy is, how can they possibly think it's in their political benefit to vote for it?
Look, you have, well, they assume that their base supports the repeal of Obamacare. That's what they know, and presumably this is what that will do. I think the analogy with the war in Iraq is not quite correct, because this is enormously complicated. You know, in the war in Iraq, do you go into the war? I chose not to. I voted against it. Or do you not? That's the decision. This one is healthcare. There are so many aspects to it. It's complicated stuff, as the president reminded us. And that you have Republicans out there, when asked by media, have you read the bill? Do you know what's in it? No, I really don't know it. But you're prepared to vote for it. Well, you know, maybe I will. It is a disgrace. It's a disgrace to the tradition of the Senate, to the United States Congress, and it really is an insult to the American people. And the reason, clearly, Chris, is they don't want any debate about it, is they know how unpopular and how awful this legislation is. How do you go home and defend throwing 23 million Americans off of health insurance, defunding Planned Parenthood, cutting Medicaid by $800 billion, raising premiums for older workers? Oh, and by the way, giving hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the richest 2% and drug companies and insurance companies. You know what? That's a pretty hard proposal to defend. Their view is, let's not defend it, let's just do it in secret.
It also seems to me, and this is something Democrats know very well, anyone that voted for the ACA, American health care is complicated. People have all sorts of mixed emotions about it. A lot of people are frustrated with their health care. And when you pass major health care legislation, the party that does that essentially owns the entirety of the system, even the parts they didn't touch. It does strike me that Republicans are on the precipice of essentially doing that. Am I wrong?
Well, yes and no. Yeah, of course they are going to own it. But behind them will be many hundreds of millions of dollars from the Koch brothers and other billionaires bombing the airwaves with 30-second ads, attacking anybody who is critical of what the Republicans did. So it's like a war, and they have heavy-duty artillery in the back, and they say, hey, we could do anything we want. It really doesn't matter.
You really think that's the reason? You really think that? You think that's the thing that emboldens them?
I think in the back of their minds is the understanding that they have an unlimited amount of money to defend them and to attack and destroy those people who are critical of what they did. I think that's a very important factor.
So there's tremendous frustration on behalf of a lot of people who follow this issue, and not just folks that have a liberal political bent, but anyone involved in the industry, healthcare. I've talked to them. They kind of can't believe what they're watching.
That's right.
The question to you and your colleagues in the Democratic Caucus is, what are you going to do? What can you do? I remember Tom Coburn, back when I used to be on Capitol Hill covering him, could bring the whole place to a stop for gosh, the craziest stuff. It seemed like the Senate would grind to a halt because Tom Coburn didn't like something. Can you do that?
I can only speak for myself. I will do everything humanly and legally possible to make sure this horrendous piece of legislation, which will be close to what the House passed, never sees the light of day. The House-passed bill, Chris, is the worst piece of legislation by far that I have seen in my lifetime. And I will do everything I can, and I think I speak for a number of other people in the Democratic Caucus, to make sure that legislation like this never, ever sees the light of day.
All right, Senator Bernie Sanders, I appreciate your time tonight.